Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Voltaire. Quotes are a great way to inspire yourself and to stay motivated. I have said it before and I will say it again. Motivation and inspiration are like personal hygiene. If you don't do it every day, you're going to have problems. And the title of this week's episode is The Good Enemy. Now, it's kind of a play on words the way I'm using that title for this particular episode. But the quote comes from Voltaire. And the quote again is, "Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good." Let's talk about a few examples of what I mean by this. I'll go directly to an example that I love to use about America. I feel that there are certain, how should I say? I don't want to say people. Well, I guess you can say certain individuals, certain groups that I think they want America to be perfect. And because America isn't perfect, they let that lack of perfection become an enemy of the good. Let me dive into that a little bit more, what I mean by that. America by no means is perfect. There are problems. There are shortcomings. But in my opinion, I'm a 55-year-old black man. And I say black man because I was brought up in the 70s, the era of James Brown. And James Brown had a song where a part of the song would say it out loud, "I'm black and I'm proud." I'm a proud black man. America is not perfect by any means, but I can't think of anywhere on the planet that provides more opportunity for me as a black man. I can't think of another place where I could do what I'm doing right now with the potential that I have with this show. I can say anything I want. I can produce this show anytime I want. I could change the topic if I want to. I could change the music if I want to. So many different situations. For example, I'm going to touch the subject just a little bit concerning Colin Kaepernick and his protesting of the flag and standing for the flag. I have no problem with that at all. But I will say this. When Kaepernick looks at the flag, he sees oppression. When I look at the flag, I see opportunity. And I'll just leave it at that. I'm not going to talk about that subject anymore. Another place where we can let the perfect be the enemy of the good, it could be in our relationships, in our friends, loved ones, whatever the case may be, significant other. If you try to make that relationship perfect, you can run into problems because nobody's perfect. You're not perfect. I'm not perfect. And you can make that perfection or that aspiration for perfection become the enemy of good. Find you a good friend. Don't necessarily look for a perfect friend. There are many people, I dare say, that are probably single today because they're looking for the perfect mate. Well, you're going to be looking for a long time. There is no perfect mate. Find you a good mate, a good person that you can spend your life with. You'll be looking for that perfect person for a very long time. Another way that this whole idea of not letting the perfect be the enemy of the good, it causes what I fall prey to a lot, and that is paralysis by analysis, because you want everything just perfect, everything just right. You never get started on certain projects. You never get started on improving this or improving that because you want to make it perfect. Perfection can be the enemy of the good. Let's look a little bit at this quote, at the quoter Voltaire. I have to be perfectly honest. I've heard the name Voltaire before, but I never really knew anything at all about Voltaire. I assumed maybe the person was French because of the name, but I never knew anything at all. And as you know, on this show, we talk a little bit about the person that is being quoted, and we'll briefly do that on this particular person, Voltaire. Born 1694 in Paris, France, died 1778, considered one of the greatest of all French writers. Continues to be held in worldwide repute as a courageous crusader against tyranny, bigotry, and cruelty. And that's sometimes, typically, most of the times I go into more about the particular individual being quoted, but today I'll leave it at that for Voltaire. And you all can do a search on Voltaire if you want to know more about that person. I'm going to try one of the original ideas that I had for this podcast. One of my original ideas was that I would, once a week, produce a podcast about quotes. And what I was going to do in the beginning is I would come on and I would give you 5 quotes for that week, one for each workday, because that's really kind of the person I'm looking at, the person who is still working at a job, perhaps wants to do their own business or just wants to get better in their job or just get better as a person. The thinking was to give you 5 quotes for that work week, one for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. I'm going to do that this week. We'll use the original quote that I gave from Voltaire, "Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good," as your Monday quote, something to meditate on, think about. Now, Tuesday, you can use this quote: "The only way to say no to 6 donuts is to have a deeper yes." Think about that. Meditate on that. And that quote comes from Matthew Kelly, author of The Rhythm of Life. Wednesday, here is your quote: "You never can get enough of what you don't really need." And that quote also comes from Matthew Kelly. Now, Tuesday, you can use this quote: "The only way to say no to 6 donuts is to have a deeper yes." Think about that. Meditate on that. And that quote comes from Matthew Kelly, author of The Rhythm of Life. Wednesday, here is your quote: "You never can get enough of what you don't really need." And that quote also comes from Matthew Kelly, the author of The Rhythm of Life. I think I may have recommended this book before on a podcast. I highly recommend that book. I purchased the audiobook. Thursday, "Consistency is the omnipotent force behind change." And this quote comes from Mark Devine, Devine. He's a former Navy SEAL and the author of The Unbeatable Mind. Another great book. And the quote for Friday: "Destiny favors the committed." And this quote comes from Kamal Ravikant. So what you can do is you can take these 5 quotes that I've given this week and use one for each day of the week. And this was my original intent for the podcast, and I'm going to give it a try for today, and perhaps I'll give it a try in the future as well. And I thank you so much again for joining me in the podcast, and I really do enjoy you coming. And if you have any suggestions, you can